Well, I agree with Regina in some respects that the president has his hands full here. If he's dealt the loss by his own allies in Congress, he's going to look very ineffective going into 2011. This is a pretty good deal for both sides. I think everyone can walk away from the table pretty happy. But Nancy Pelosi, and I said this as soon as they decided she was going to be the leader of the party in the House, is going to be a big problem for Barack Obama. She doesn't believe in these tax cuts. She's never believed in these tax cuts, and she's going to go down fighting on this. And it's going to be tough to round up the votes. The Blue Dogs, most of them just lost an election, and they're kind of got their tail tucked between their legs and trying to figure out what they're going to do next. So the Democratic Party really needs to get behind Barack Obama in this and pass this thing soon.
And if they don't, who suffers besides the folks who would be directly impacted in terms of politically? Who would suffer?
No question in my mind, it's Barack Obama and the Democratic Party. He's not going to look like a strong president. The Democrats can't leave him hanging out here with a deal cut and then not have themselves pass it in a all-Democrat Congress right now.
Yeah, Matt, I agree with you as well. And one thing that Democrats need to do is remind the moderate Democrats and those doing the messaging is remind the liberal Dems, who are the ones who are making the noise right now, what achievements we actually got during those first 2 years. We got health care for all, as everyone knows, which was a tremendous effort and cost us many seats in Congress. We also got financial regulations on Wall Street. That wouldn't have been done if the Democrats weren't supporting him. So that was another thing that Barack Obama got done that he promised to do. He also extended, which is more of a civil rights and liberal type thing, he extended protections for workers to bring civil lawsuits if they're being discriminated in the workplace. I mean, so he did accomplish many things. He didn't accomplish everything. So they need to look at the bigger picture and understand that this is about the economy. We lost 63 seats in the House and 6 in the U.S. Senate because there was no job growth. We need to focus on job growth, and some of these tax cuts are going to help us get there.
So that's the compromise mainly. And Regina, hang on for me, Matt. I know you have some thoughts on that, but Regina actually reminds me to direct you guys to this story that's on FoxNews.com, Obama's scorecard on promises kept, and another topic we're going to be discussing in a second is unemployment benefits, needed relief, or waste of money. In the meantime, Regina is saying, you were saying that the president is telling his party, look, I have gotten a lot of things done. Some things I haven't, but I've gotten a lot done, and he's in for the fight. In fact, here's a soundbite from the president now.
I will be happy to see the Republicans test whether or not I'm itching for a fight on a whole range of issues. I suspect they will find I am. And I think the American people will be on my side on a whole bunch of these fights. But right now, I want to make sure that the American people aren't hurt because we're having a political fight. And I think that this agreement accomplishes that. And, as I said, there are a whole bunch of things that they are giving up.
And Matt, bringing you back into the discussion right now, some of the people, 2 million of them, in fact, that the president seemed to have at the forefront of his mind, are the 2 million folks who would be affected if, in fact, the unemployment benefits were not extended. And so that was part of the compromise that the president said, listen, it's about the people, not politics at this juncture. What do you say about that?
Well, I was disappointed in his performance yesterday. I think he had a great opportunity to appear bipartisan. And what was one of his most, if his any, bipartisan moment in his administration so far, he felt the need to give the Republicans noogies on camera and not actually be gracious in a deal that he cut with them. Look, the problem for President Obama right now, and Regina mentioned it before, is we've had a jobless recovery to date, and he needs to spur the economy to get small businesses hiring again. That's the one area where I would disagree with Regina. What she said earlier, I do think a lot of small businesses will start hiring. At least they have a certainty for 2 years now.
And is that enough? 2 years, is that enough? Because there are some arguments about that particular timeline that it puts you right smack dab in the middle of another election cycle. Go ahead,
yeah, I think that was a great point for the Republicans to negotiate. Now he's going to have to answer this again as he goes into a re-election. And the one thing that Democrats need to understand, I think, is that people want jobs. They don't want unemployment benefits. They would prefer a job to unemployment benefits, and that's what I think where they're missing the messaging from the American people.
Who's missing that
Those people
message?
that are out of work want a job.
Who's missing that message?
The Democrats in the House, particularly.
Really? Okay.
No. I mean, I think the Democrats in the House aren't missing any messaging. I think that they read what the tea leaves were on November 2nd, and if they didn't, then they need to go back to school to learn how to read. But what they need to do is, they're very unhappy with the tax cuts, especially the tax cuts that were extended for the rich. They're seeing it as bonuses, bailout for bonuses as well. So this was a trade-off. But we can't, in the middle of a recovery, again, we don't want to rock the boat. We can't, in the middle of recovery, start pulling back all these subsidies that we're providing, because especially for over 2 million people, and around Christmas time, and it's only going to be extended for a few more months. So, and then we'll start addressing this again once the recovery starts, once the economy starts picking up and jobs are being created. Then we could at least revisit the unemployment benefits. They weren't extended for 2 years like the tax cuts were extended, so we'll be revisiting them. But it is something that needed to be done.
So it's not, in your opinion, as we were talking about this particular article here at FoxNews.com, unemployment benefits relief or waste, you say it's a relief, at least temporary relief that's needed.
It's a temporary relief that's needed now.
You say what, Matt?
I'd like to see it paid for if they're going to have the relief.
Well, I would like to see the tax cuts for the wealthy paid for as well. I mean, as we know, that added all these tax cuts that were provided 10 years ago added $7 trillion to the debt. It's going to add another, few trillion or $100 billion to the debt as well. I'd like to see everything paid for. So
that's where I would disagree, though. I would say that the taxpayers' money is their money that they give to the government. It's not something that needs to be paid for.
Well, unemployment insurance benefits are actually paid for by those when they're working, and this is part of the money that they put into the system for their working.
An extension of that. Well, yeah, and part of the problem with the disconnect that the Democrats are experiencing is that people don't want to continue to spend without some sense of responsibility from the people in Washington, D.C., and that's what they're continuing to see. And on tax cuts, I disagree. I think they think that it's their money, and they want to keep some of it.
And Matt, where does that fiscal responsibility come into play? I mean, exactly how do you stop the bleeding?
Well, and one of the things that I think the president is looking forward to, and is very wise to do in this negotiation, is that no matter what the Democrats think, he's going to be dealing with a Republican Congress in the House of Representatives come January 5th. So to get things done and to be the transformational president that he wants to be, he is going to have to work with Republicans. And one of the things that they're going to do is want to cut spending. And I think the president, in all sincerity, wants to cut some wasteful spending too. So hopefully they can get together again and sit down and make some responsible adult decisions that the American people are looking for.
The Republicans had Congress for 6 of the 8 years under Bush, and when President Bush was president as well. And our deficit increased substantially. And it wasn't just because of the Iraq and Iran wars. It was also because of these tax cuts as well. So whether or not you say that it's their money and they want to keep it, it's still contributed to the deficit. So that's something that needs to be addressed going forward. So the Republicans are the ones who started contributing to our debt, and they've got to figure out how to work on pay-as-you-go as well, and go back to the Clinton era.
And do you feel like they've been clear on ideas of how to do that?
Absolutely not. There have been the party of no. They've been absolute obstructionists. They have no ideas at all, and they haven't put anything on the table. And what they're trying to do is, while they're saying we should be cutting the deficit, was pushing through something that was going to create and increase our deficit as well.
Matt, I see you shaking your head. Jump in there for me, and then I want to ask you about another point before we move on to talk about increasing oil prices. Go ahead, Matt.
Well, I would respectfully disagree. The party of no, only in that they're listening to the American people on things that they don't want. If the Democrats...
I don't think that the American people really want tax cuts for the wealthy. I mean,
I think they want jobs, and we can't punish job creators.
Yeah, but then you don't extend tax cuts for multi-billionaires. You just raise the cap from $250,000 to $1 million, because those are the small business owners usually fall under $1 million. You don't extend it to multi-billionaires. I mean, that's the one criticism that I have with this.
I would love to see the Democrats that want to tax the rich. President Obama, too. He made $5 million the last couple of years. Why doesn't he lead by an example and stroke a check to the Treasury? Why doesn't some of the senators like John Kerry, who's worth $2 billion, and actually gets up with a straight face and talks about tax cuts for the rich? Why doesn't he lead by example and stroke a big fat check to the Treasury. If they started doing stuff like that, I might actually take them seriously when they
actually,
talk to
then what we also would suggest is that the Republican Congress members who just won election and complained about health care for all and government-operated health care should probably decline all the free health care that they're going to be getting for themselves and their families, paid for by tax dollars when they become Congress members, when they get on the congressional health care plan. So they should also lead by example as well.
So,
if they want repeal of the health care law, then they should deny all the health care benefits that they should get as well. I'm sorry. There's a little bit of hypocrisy on both sides. If you're going to point it out one side, point it out on the other side as well.
Hey guys, let me just talk about this. $900 billion is what how much the federal borrowing could increase, according to Representative Anthony Weiner here of New York, a liberal Democrat. He's talking about this, the estate taxes, okay? The Democrats are mad that the administration agreed to exempt inheritance up to $5 million and to set the tax rate at 35%. So again, they're saying that this is again another concession to folks who are uber rich. You say what to that?
It was absolutely a concession, and that's the one thing that I think is somewhat unexplainable. I mean, we not that I agree upon extending the tax cuts for multi-billionaires, but you understand that it was part of the deal. And as a lawyer, I know that when you come up with a negotiation where both sides are unhappy, then you know it was a fair negotiation. So what we have on the table so far was somewhat understandable, except for the extending the estate tax. I don't understand why that piece was thrown in, and I think maybe if President Obama could explain that and explain what it was that he was about to lose if he didn't throw that into the mix, then that may calm and may quell some of the anger that's out there. But that one was completely unexplainable.
Congressman Weiner says that was where they had the most leverage. Why'd you throw that towel in there? Matt, you say what?
Well, the estate tax, I don't call it the estate tax, I call it the death tax. It's amazing that the government, who has taxed you all your life, wants to then come in and take after-tax receipts that you have accumulated for your family and then tax those again. And one of the problems for small businesses are they can't afford those taxes. If you have a restaurant or if you have a construction business and most of your business is in the assets of that business, for example, the pizza oven or the tractors, you have to sell off your assets to pay the taxes. It's insane. Can't they tax us enough while we're alive and not just leave us alone when we're dead? I mean, it's to think that $5 million for a limit is too high is insane to me.
It was a negotiating point. I mean, I live on the North Fork of Long Island, and we have a lot of farmers out there and families of farmers. And when the parents die, then the children are the ones who are bequeathed the property. And unfortunately, if they sell off some of the property that has been sold to developers in the past, so you're ruining opening space. So I understand the argument about the death tax and how we want to limit it as well. So I'm not completely in disagreement with Matt on that, especially some of the scenarios that he was coming up with. But it was a bargaining chip. That's what it was. Why was it thrown in there, and what did we get for it? And that's what wasn't explained. It wasn't explained to the Democrats at all.
So you still don't know?
We still don't know.
Hey, Matt, so let's talk about this article here at FoxNews.com, President Obama's scorecard on promises kept. Do you have any points in terms of the promises President made as a candidate, and now as a president that he has kept, and perhaps the promises that he was not able to keep?
Well, I think we're seeing now a disappointment from his base. And look, bases are tough things to keep happy. As Republicans found out in 2000 and 2006 and 8, and Barack Obama's finding out now. Look, do I think that the base is going to be, the MoveOn.org types are going to be disappointed that not only are we not out of Afghanistan, but we have 3 times the troop presence over there? Yeah, I think he's got a problem there, and I think he may have an issue with MoveOn.org and the George Soroses of the world. With health care, a lot of the left is not happy with the bill. It wasn't a universal health care coverage. And now he's capitulating, in their terms, not mine, to tax cuts for the rich. I think he's really hoping that this base is going to give him a lot of leeway going into 2012.
Matt, I think what you're assuming is
Get the last word. I've gotta move on.
the Democratic base and people who voted for him in the past weren't all liberals. There were moderates, there were independents, there were some folks on the Republican side who were middle of the road as well. That's the base, and that's where America is. And he went a little bit to the left these past 2 years, and that's why he actually lost the vote that he did. He needs to center again. He needs to triangulate. He needs to use Clinton's model, and that's what he's doing, because otherwise, where's that liberal base going to go? I mean, they're not going to be voting for a Tea Party Republican, so they'll be there. I mean, they may not be there so enthusiastically, but they'll be there. So he needs to get back to the center.
All right, that's the final word, because Regina, you stay here with me, but Matt Keelen, I've got to let you go. I do appreciate your time. It was nice to talk to you this morning.
Always a pleasure.
And we're going to, absolutely, we're going to stay in D.C. because that's where Molly